Some kids grow up thinking no one's watching. They mouth off, push boundaries, shove people, laugh like the world is just a game waiting to be reset. But sometimes they cross paths with someone who's seen more than they ever will, someone who doesn't need to shout to be dangerous. Someone like Jason Statham. Only, on this particular afternoon, they didn't know that's who he was. To them, he was just an old guy with a limp, and they made one mistake too many. It started on a quiet stretch of street just past the public library. A few small shops lined the sidewalk, a discount pharmacy, a thrift store, and a bakery with its door propped open by an empty milk crate. The kind of street you only find if you live nearby or are taking a shortcut on foot. Jason was doing neither. He was walking. No driver. No entourage. Just a dark gray hoodie pulled halfway up and a pair of worn boots that made a quiet thump with each step. He kept his head low, shoulders tucked in, left leg a little slower than the right, the kind of walk you see in men with real injuries they never complain about. In his right hand, he carried a simple white paper bag, the kind bakeries use when someone just buys one thing. Inside, a single sourdough roll, warm, heavy in the palm, simple. And that was the kind of day he wanted. Simple. That changed at the crosswalk. "Hey, old man." Jason didn't turn at first. Didn't need to. He could already tell three voices behind him, maybe four. Young. Late teens. One dominant, the others just louder than they needed to be. He stepped forward toward the sidewalk's edge. The street was clear, one lane each way, cars parked on both sides. "Yo, I'm talking to you, stiffback." Still, he didn't turn. He stepped off the curb, and that's when the shove came. Quick, crude, a palm to the shoulder blade, right between the spine and the scapula. Unskilled but aggressive, Jason stumbled, but only a little. To anyone watching, it looked like he was caught mid-step. But the truth was, he chose not to fall. He turned slowly, keeping his paper bag steady. Behind him stood four kids. 17, maybe 18 years old. Baggy hoodies. One with a half-cracked scooter. Another with a vape tucked behind his ear. The leader, the one who'd shoved him, wore a Yankees cap tilted to the side and a smirk so wide it barely fit on his face. "Didn't mean to trip you, Grandpa," the kid said. "Didn't realize you were gonna crumble like dry toast." His friends laughed. Jason blinked slowly, then looked down at the paper bag in his hand. Still intact, still warm, he looked back up, said nothing. The leader took a half-step forward. "What, you deaf too?" Still nothing. The air shifted just slightly, not because Jason tensed up, but because he didn't. The kids noticed it not consciously, but in the way animals sense weather. The leader's grin twitched. "Yo," he said to his friend, "get a pic of this, about to roast a fossil." Jason finally spoke. Calm. Clear. "You shove a man in the street, you better be ready to see what kind of man he is." The lead kid snorted. "What are you, a fortune cookie?" Jason stepped closer, not fast, just deliberate. "I'm someone who's been trained to end fights before they start." "But if you start one," he paused, "you don't get to choose how it ends." That's when one of the kids actually recognized him, not fully, not by name, but his eyes narrowed. "Wait a second, this dude looks mad familiar." Jason tilted his head. The leader rolled his eyes. "Nah, bro's just trying to act tough." Jason looked at him square. "Do I look like I'm trying?" The kid hesitated. That's when something subtle happened. Jason's posture changed, just slightly. His back straightened, his hands relaxed, and his left foot rotated exactly 30 degrees. A stance, the kind you only notice if you've been in a real fight, and this kid, he hadn't. Jason was no longer just standing there. He was ready. The kid holding the phone lowered it instinctively. The one with the scooter muttered, "Yo, maybe we should bounce." But the leader wasn't done proving something to himself. He puffed up. "What you gonna throw down, Pops? You sure your back can handle it?" Jason stared, unblinking, then said, "Your posture gives you away. Weight on your heels, hands too wide. You're not ready, you just think you are." The kid snapped, "Say that again." Jason took one final step forward, and just loud enough for the others to hear, he said, If I were you, I'd go back to that sidewalk and thank the curb for not being your pillow." Silence, total silence. Then the kid lunged, not smart, not fast, just angry. Jason didn't punch him, didn't even strike. He sidestepped cleanly, caught the kid's hoodie collar midair, and used the boy's own momentum to redirect him right past, sending him stumbling, tripping, and eating concrete before he could even turn around. No blood, no broken bones, just pure humiliation. The others froze. Jason looked at them, voice still even. Anyone else? They shook their heads. One grabbed the scooter, another helped their ringleader up. Jason waited, gave them the time to make the right choice. And they did. No more words, no more laughter. They backed off, mumbling. When they finally turned the corner and vanished, Jason looked down. His paper bag was still intact. He looked across the street, made sure it was clear, then crossed casually and kept walking like it had never happened. I'd seen the whole thing, from across the bakery. And I'd filmed none of it, because sometimes you know better than to record something sacred, and what I saw wasn't violence, it was restraint, the kind that comes from years of pain, training, and hard-earned peace. And that kid, he'll never shove another man in his life. The kid's knees scraped the concrete. His friends didn't laugh, no one did, because the fall wasn't funny, it was surgical. No bruising, no blood, no theatrics. Just a sudden reminder that some people walk through this world with power they choose not to use. The teens helped their ringleader up without saying a word. He didn't make eye contact with Jason, didn't mouth off. He just dusted off his knees, adjusted his cap, and muttered to no one, "Let's go." They walked away fast, not running, but with that wide-shouldered urgency kids use when they're trying to look cool while hiding their fear. Jason turned his back to them, not out of disrespect, out of disinterest. He adjusted the weight of the paper bag in his palm, crossed the street, and headed for the corner bench next to the bakery. He sat with a quiet breath and pulled out the sourdough roll, still warm, still soft. He didn't look at his phone, didn't glance back over his shoulder. He just sat there chewing, but inside the bakery someone had noticed. "Claire," the baker called out from behind the counter. "You see that guy on the bench?" The young woman wiping the glass display looked out the window, gray hoodie, broad shoulders, calm posture. She nodded. "Yeah." "Was he the one those kids were messing with?" "I think so. They shoved him, and now they're gone." The baker narrowed his eyes. "Gone?" Like scattered, didn't even go into the liquor store. The baker untied his apron, walked around the counter, and stepped out the door. Jason didn't look up as the door opened. He kept chewing. The baker approached slowly. "Excuse me," he said gently. Jason looked over. "You all right?" the baker asked. Jason nodded. "Fine." "I saw part of it," the man said. "They were out of line." Jason shrugged. "They're kids." Not the first time they tested someone. The baker studied him. Then, "You're not just some guy, are you?" Jason didn't answer right away. The baker leaned on the railing. "I've seen a lot of fights, and I've seen a lot of movies with fights. What you just did, that was control. Like the kind you can't fake." Jason raised an eyebrow, then wiped his hand on a napkin and held it out. "Jason." The baker's jaw dropped. "Statham." Jason gave a small nod. The baker grinned, shook his hand. "Name's Raj. I run the bakery. Good bread." "You handled that like a monk with scars." Jason smirked. "I've had worse mornings." Raj sat on the bench beside him. "They didn't even recognize you." "I'm not dressed for the poster." Raj laughed. Jason looked up at the sky, clouds low and slow. The kind of afternoon where the light doesn't quite commit, it's just soft enough to make you reflect. Raj asked, "You mind if I ask, why didn't you knock him down?" Jason looked at him, chewing, then swallowed. Because one day he might look back at that fall and realize he got lucky. Raj nodded slowly. "I've seen too many people wait their whole lives to figure that out." Meanwhile, 2 blocks away, the 4 teens were walking in silence. They weren't joking anymore. The leader's knees were scuffed and red. He kept brushing them off like he could erase the moment. But the fall wasn't what haunted him. It was how fast it happened, how outclassed he felt. The kid with the vape finally broke the silence. "Yo, you know who that was, right?" "No," the leader snapped. "I think it was Jason Statham." The others stopped. "Who?" "The transporter guy." Fast and furious. Crank. Snatch. "You sure?" The kid pulled out his phone, searched for a photo, held it up. "That's him." The leader stared at the screen, then muttered, "No way." The scooter kid chimed in, "Bro moved exactly like that. The sidestep, the grip, it's like he's done it a million times." They all went quiet again. Finally, the leader spoke. "I'm gonna delete that clip." "What?" "I was filming it, remember?" he muttered. "But I don't want that living online." The others didn't question it, they understood. Because no one wants to watch a moment where they almost ruined their life and got spared by someone who could have done real damage. Back at the bakery, Raj offered Jason a cup of coffee. Jason declined, then stood, dusted off the seat of his pants. "You staying in town long?" Raj asked. "Just passing through." "You ever want a quiet place to sit? This bench is always open." Jason nodded, then turned to leave. But just before he reached the edge of the sidewalk, Raj called out, "Hey!" Jason turned. "I've seen a lot of strong people lose their cool over way less," Raj said. "What you did back there, that's rare." Jason tilted his head, then said, "Strength without control is just noise." And then he walked off. The next day, Raj printed out a small sign and taped it inside the bakery window. It read, "One of the calmest men I've ever met sat here yesterday. He was shoved, mocked, disrespected, and stayed still. Strength isn't how hard you hit. It's what you do before you swing." A few locals asked about it. Raj never named names, but the story traveled, whispered in barbershops, side alleys, and storefronts, not as gossip, but as a reminder. The kid with the vape, his name was Ty, didn't sleep well that night. Not because he was scared Jason would come find him. He was scared of something worse, that he might have helped push a man into the street and didn't even think twice. He hadn't shoved him. He hadn't filmed. He didn't say anything, really. But he was there. He was part of it. And now, he couldn't stop replaying the moment the older man turned around, stared, and said, "You better be ready to see what kind of man he is." It wasn't a threat. It was a warning. The kind that doesn't need volume to be permanent. The next morning, Ty walked alone. No hoodie, no speaker in his backpack, just hands in his pockets and a weird feeling in his chest. He didn't go to the skate park like usual. He walked to the bakery. He didn't even really know why. He just remembered seeing the guy, Jason, sit on the bench outside, eating that roll like it was the first warm thing he'd had all day. Ty didn't expect to see him again. He didn't. But Raj, the baker, was out front hosing off the sidewalk. He spotted Ty approaching and narrowed his eyes. "Back to cause trouble." Ty stopped a full 5 feet away. "No, sir." Raj turned off the hose, leaned it against the wall. He studied the boy, wiry build, eyes a little too old for someone still wearing scuffed-up Nikes. "You with those other kids yesterday?" Ty nodded once. "I was." Raj crossed his arms, and Ty looked at the bench, then down at the wet sidewalk. "I didn't push him. I didn't say anything, but I just stood there. I didn't stop it." Raj let the silence hang, then said, "That's still noise." Ty looked up. Raj added, "Being silent while your people do stupid things doesn't make you innocent. It makes you a witness who didn't intervene." Ty nodded again. "I know." Raj raised an eyebrow. "Then why are you here?" Ty dug into his pocket, pulled out a folded, slightly squished paper bag. "Same bakery branding, 2 rolls inside." "I bought these," he said. "Thought maybe I could leave them on that bench. I don't know. Dumb, right?" Raj's mouth twitched, almost a smile. "It's not dumb," he said. "It's a start." Inside the bakery, Raj sat Ty down, didn't offer a lecture. Didn't play a video, just gave him a seat, a napkin, and a hot roll straight from the oven. Ty ate in silence. Then finally asked, "Who was he, really?" Raj poured coffee. "You know who he was?" "Yeah," Ty said. "But why was he just walking? No cameras, no car, no anything?" Raj shrugged. "Because not everyone's looking for an audience." Ty sat with that. I looked him up, he admitted. The guy's done, like stunt work, military training, movies where he fights like 10 people at once. Raj nodded. And he didn't even hit back. That's what gets you? Raj asked. Ty shook his head. No, what gets me is that he could have. Word had started spreading through the neighborhood, not through phones, through people, barbershop chairs, bus stops, teachers in the teacher's lounge. Everyone had heard some version of it. A group of teens tried to punk an old man. They didn't know he was Jason Statham. He didn't even hit them, just made one of them trip over his own pride, then walked away. It was the kind of story that stuck, because it wasn't flashy. It was real. And that's what made it powerful. Back in the bakery, Raj was finishing up for the day when his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He let it ring once, then answered. Yeah, Raj, it was Jason. He didn't explain how he got the number, didn't need to. I heard one of the kids came back. Raj chuckled. Word travels. Was he real about it? Yeah, Raj said. You got under his skin. Jason was quiet for a second. Then, good. You thinking of coming back through? Maybe. Raj looked out the window. Wouldn't be a bad thing. You made an impact here. Jason said nothing. Then finally, I didn't come here to teach anyone anything. I know, Raj said. But you did anyway. Jason hung up. That same evening, Ty sat on the edge of his bed, no music playing, no game controller in hand, just him and a spiral notebook. He started scribbling. Not an apology letter, not a plan, just thoughts. You can act tough your whole life and still get dropped by the quiet guy. The loud ones aren't the problem. It's the calm ones you should worry about. Being feared is easy. Being respected, that's different. He stared at the page. Then tore it out and folded it twice, tucked it into his pocket, just in case he ever saw him again. Jason didn't tell anyone he was coming back. No call, no message, he just showed up, late morning. Hoodie again, bag in hand, same boots. This time he didn't head for the sidewalk bench. He walked straight into the bakery. Raj was restocking the pastry shelf and looked up, surprised. You came back. Jason nodded. Wasn't planning to, but I figured, if someone comes back to the scene, they're still thinking about it. Raj dried his hands with a towel. Ty's been by twice. Yesterday he cleaned the bench without being asked. Jason gave a small smirk. That's something. You want coffee? Raj offered. Just the roll, Jason said, lifting 2 fingers. One for the bench, one for me. Raj packed the bag and handed it over. Jason nodded again and stepped outside. He sat on the same bench, same side, same angle to the street, then, without looking up, said, I know you're watching. Ty stepped from around the side of the building, hands in his hoodie pocket, slightly hunched like someone trying to unexist. He looked at the bench, then at Jason. Then sat down slowly, about 2 feet away. Jason tore a piece of sourdough and chewed. Ty didn't say anything. Jason didn't force it. Eventually, Ty pulled out the folded notebook paper, held it out. Jason took it, unfolded, read it silently, then folded it back and handed it to him. You already know what you wrote, Jason said. Ty nodded. Jason leaned back. So why come back? Ty glanced at the sidewalk. I don't know, I guess. I wanted to know if you were real. Jason arched an eyebrow. You saw me fall. You saw me stand. That's pretty real. I know, Ty said. But I meant people don't usually do what you did. Not grown men, not in this city. You get shoved, you push back, you swing. Jason shrugged. Restraint isn't weakness, it's control. Ty looked over. You weren't scared. Jason chewed another bite. Fear's natural. But fear doesn't have to drive the car. Ty processed that, then said, You could have hurt him. I know. But you didn't. Jason looked at him carefully. What would that have taught him? Ty didn't answer. Jason continued. Some people only change when they get embarrassed. Some only change when they get hurt. But if you give someone a chance to walk away with their pride dented, not shattered, they might actually grow. Ty's eyes widened slightly. Jason smirked. That's rare, but I'm betting your friend might be that kind. Ty hesitated, then said quietly, He hasn't joked since. Jason nodded. Ty reached into his pocket again, pulled out two $5 bills, held them out. Jason looked at him. For what? For the roll you dropped when we shoved you. You still had it, but you didn't get to enjoy it. Jason didn't take the money, he just said, keep it. Use it to buy someone else breakfast tomorrow. Ty slowly pulled the bills back and returned them to his pocket. Jason stood up. Don't become someone who only learns from getting hit, he said. Then he started walking away. Hey, Ty called out. Jason turned back. Ty asked, were you always like this? Jason paused. No, he said. I used to think being dangerous meant you had to prove it. And now I know being dangerous means you don't. Ty sat on the bench another 10 minutes after Jason left. Didn't check his phone, didn't take a selfie, just sat, and something about the way that silence filled him. Felt solid, like he'd grown into it. Meanwhile, Jason walked 6 blocks before he hailed a cab. The driver didn't recognize him. Didn't need to. Jason didn't want to be seen, just transported. Halfway through the ride, the driver glanced in the mirror. You look like somebody. Jason gave a small grin. Used to be. The driver laughed. Still are, man. Nobody sits that still unless they've seen some S. Jason nodded once. Fair enough. Back at the bakery, Raj stepped out and found the notebook paper still folded, sitting on the bench. He opened it, read the handwriting again, then tucked it into a small drawer behind the register. Didn't file it, didn't frame it, just saved it. Because not every lesson comes in a quote. Some come in the form of a kid coming back and staying long enough to listen. By nightfall, the sidewalk bench had a new routine. Older folks sat longer. Teenagers didn't cut through as fast. And every so often, someone would sit, fold their hands and just think. They didn't know why, but something about the air there made them feel like they should. Ty didn't go back to the bakery the next day, or the day after that. He didn't need to. He just walked a little differently now, back straighter, hood down, headphones off. People noticed. Not because he was trying to stand out, but because he wasn't trying to hide anymore. He stopped cutting across driveways, started looking people in the eye when they said, "Good morning." He wasn't looking for forgiveness. He was earning respect the right way. Back at the bakery, Raj kept things simple. He didn't tell the story every day, just when it mattered. One afternoon, a delivery guy showed up, late and grumpy, complaining about traffic and life and everything in between. Raj handed him the receipt and nodded toward the bench outside. Sit for a minute before you blow up at the wrong person. The delivery guy looked confused. Raj said, someone once sat there and changed the tone of this whole street. He didn't shout. He didn't fight. He just stood his ground and then walked away. The delivery guy didn't fully get it, but he sat anyway. And later, on his next stop, he didn't snap when the customer barked at him about a missing kwasa. He just breathed and walked away. 1 week later, Jason was gone, not officially. No train ticket, no announcement, just gone. The bench was empty. The sidewalk normal. But things weren't the same. Ty still hadn't talked to the ringleader since that day. Not really. But one evening, while locking his bike outside the corner bodega, he saw him walking up the block alone. No friends, just him and his earbuds. They made eye contact. The ringleader gave a small nod. Ty nodded back. That was it. No apology, no weird tension, just an unspoken truth shared in one glance. We both know what happened. And neither of us is pretending it didn't. That was enough. Meanwhile, Raj added something small to the bakery window, just below the bench wisdom sign he'd taped there earlier. It was a photo, blurry, black and white security cam still from the day it all happened. Jason, halfway turned, calm, the teens mid-stumble. Under it, in neat letters, it read, "Some strength is loud. Real strength is silent until necessary." People came in asking who it was. Raj never said, but he always pointed at the bench and said, "If you sit there long enough, you'll feel it." At the local middle school, a teacher used the story for a writing prompt. "What does it mean to be strong?" One student wrote, "My older brother says strong means you can fight, but I think strong means you don't need to." A week after that, Ty found himself near a bus stop when another group of teens, younger, maybe freshmen, started picking on a small kid who dropped his backpack. They nudged him, called him names. Ty didn't even think. He walked up, put his foot between the kid and the other boys. Didn't raise his voice, didn't puff his chest. He just looked at the one doing the most talking and said flat, "You don't know who someone is, you don't know what they've done, and if you push the wrong one, you'll regret it before you hit the ground." The boys backed off. No fight. Just retreat. The smaller kid looked up. "Thanks." Ty shook his head. "Don't thank me, just don't let them mess with you again." And then he walked away, just like he'd seen it done. Elsewhere in the city, Jason sat on a different bench. This one was by the river, less crowded, less known. He wasn't watching the water, he wasn't meditating, he was just still. A man passed by and did a double take. "You're Jason Statham, right?" Jason nodded politely. The man held up his phone. "Mind if I?" Jason waved it off gently. "Just let me be a person today." The man lowered the phone. "Respect." He walked on. Jason smiled faintly and sat back. He didn't need headlines, didn't need a quote, didn't need to prove anything, because he'd already left something behind that mattered more than fame. Example.